Hi, welcome to SGSM, Shitty Games, Shitty Movies. Today's shitty movie review is London Has Fallen. I just got back from seeing this, and it was uh, interesting. Um, Warning for anyone watching, um, there will be spoilers for this movie because, well, fuck it, I want to talk about them. Did have some kind of poignant commentary about how fragile our civilized society is and a little bit about security measures and how we handle security as a nation and other nations and basically how if somebody really wants to got a group together and planned it really well, they could kill a number of heads of state before any sort of counterattack could be launched. I think this is known. I think that this isn't something that's terribly new. I just think that most plans have leaks, and that's really the problem with that sort of thing. Um, but none of this is terribly surprising news. Okay, so the setup of the movie is a bit slow at the beginning. They spend a good amount of time setting up all the characters and their motivations, which there weren't a lot of. I'll get to that in a moment. They give you a lot of people's names that you don't need to know. They give you the cabinet members and security council members in both the United States and in the United Kingdom that you just don't need to know. They give you the names of heads of states, um, which you don't need to know, especially since none of the people that they actually give names for are real people. Imaginary alternate universe where everything is the same except for the current heads of state. Except that at the beginning of the movie, they showed a clip of Obama, so this must take place in the near ish future of 2020 ish, probably. But, anyways, they give you names, and that's about it for a lot of these side characters. And I feel like they didn't need to do that, and instead could have spent more time fleshing out the actual characters of the. So the story is basically that the head of the Secret Service, Matt Banning, played by Gerard Butler, is going to send in his 2 weeks notice to to President Asher, who's played by Aaron Eckhart, aka Two Face. And it was just so fitting to see Aaron Eckhart, the man who played Two Face in the Christopher Nolan Batman, play the President of the United States. Plays a really good politician, and but the entire time I'm just thinking, is he gonna just take? When's he just gonna pull out his gun and a coin and be like, heads, I shoot. Sorry, yeah, heads I shoot you, tails you live, and then flip it, and it's the he's not Two Face yet, so the coin always comes up heads. Leave it to Lady Luck. Um, but Matt Banning is gonna put in his 2 weeks notice the president from his job as head of the Secret Service. And his wife has a baby on the way, and it's a high stress job where he puts his life on the line every day. So basically, he's a cop 2 weeks note with who's 2 weeks from retirement, but just slightly different. At the very beginning of the movie, after there was some narration that I didn't care about, uh, maybe don't remember if it was before or after the scene, but at the beginning of the movie, they show an arms dealer, Barkawi, played by Alon Abd Abu Abutbul in Punjab. Get that right, not the actor's name. Um, and he's a wanted arms dealer, and the U.S. government okays a drone strike on the wedding. There's a wedding that he's attending with his family, and the United States does a drone strike on it, killing what looks to be in that scene something probably along the lines of 100 to 150 people, which is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Only like the arms dealer plus his sons were actually involved in the business. So they killed like 150, maybe even 200 people because there was a guy there that they wanted to kill. And really, if you kill the father, then it doesn't matter. Everyone else just gonna kind of fall apart because that's the way that these things work, clearly. But the drone strike doesn't kill him, and instead just kills his daughter. 2 years later, with the help of his sons, they raised an army of sleeper agents, mostly in London, assassinate the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and then because the Prime Minister was head of state, a whole bunch of other heads of state have to come and attend the funeral, and using all these sleeper agents that they've been putting in, which they've apparently been planning for 2 years, they kill 5 of the heads of state at the funeral. The president of the United States, of course, because with his superior security planning, and that this is an American movie, gets away. But because he's the primary target, he becomes the person that everyone else in the world who still has remaining resources has to protect. Among the other heads of states were Japan, Germany, and France. That, yeah, some commentary there. I'll let you draw what you will from it, though. So all this is under the pretense of beginning a war and bringing this war created by the arms dealer to the metaphorical Western Front. The action scenes in this movie were actually pretty good. They didn't suffer from shaky cam syndrome. But some of the violence in this movie was over the top. And this is a rated R movie, and it's rated R for violence and language, but it's mostly for violence. I'd say nearly all for violence. Yeah. Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot of cursing in this movie, just barely enough to be put R. This movie would definitely, even without any language at all, would be R just for the violence, because the violence is that excessive. Now, I'm a pretty jaded individual. I am not easily shocked by anything, particularly movie and TV violence. It just, you see enough of it, and it's hard to shock me. And there were some middle school age kids in the audience, and I disagree with the parents' decision to bring them to come see this movie for a number of reasons that I'll go into in just a couple minutes. And the effects were on the blood pretty good. I mean, there was some CGI blood splats that you were like, okay, that's CGI, that doesn't bother me. But some of the practical effects, they got, there was, it was violent. Not a fun kind of violent, really. Like Deadpool was violent and campy and enjoyable as an action movie. This was just fucking brutal. Absolutely brutal. And some of the violence and the the scenes and some of the way that some of the people died, just I cringed, and there was a couple that it was really hard to watch. And I was like, "Oh my." There were times where I made some small exclamations like, "God, just Jesus Christ, fucking violent." Of course, on the other hand, some of it was kind of cheesy, and some of the dialogue was cheesy, kind of schlocky lines like that you would imagine in like a much cheaper action movie. Um, and they tried to do jokes. They tried to do jokes, which this movie was not a movie for jokes. Let me tell you one. There's a point where Banning tells Asher to get into the armory of the safe house that they're in. Banning is going through an action scene, helping, try to protect the armory, and right as he's about to get shot, he's saved by the president, who comes out of armory. To which Banning says to the President of the United States, quote, "I was wondering when you were going to come out of the closet," unquote. And then, of course, the president says, "That's not very funny." And it isn't. It's 2016. And you're going to make a cheap, low denominator gay joke about the president? Never mind the fact that the head of the Secret Service, even if he's on friendly terms with the president, would never be allowed to say something like that. That would get you fired. I mean, he was going to quit anyways. At the end of the movie, he decides not to because of a rousing speech by Morgan Freeman. Because honestly, if you're going to bill Morgan Freeman for a movie, you got to have him give an inspirational speech somewhere in the movie. I mean, it's just kind of like a thing that you do with Morgan Freeman. You're like, let's see, how can we get all of the mileage out that we can out of Morgan Freeman? Okay, we make him the vice president, which makes him acting president, while President Asher is in mortal turmoil. So we have him in a seat of power at the head of a desk with a set of counselors. We gotta have him make at least one inspiring statement, an inspiring speech. And we have to have him say something funny. Basically, be Morgan Freeman, just like for 15 to 20 seconds, just so we can catch that magic. And honestly, he had the best performance in the movie. Just really, without Morgan Freeman in this movie, it wouldn't have been worth going to go see at all, even for the action, let alone all of the terrible things that this movie has done, is going to do, and just, okay. Okay. Now, not all of the CGI really panned out. Some of the stuff you were like, but of course they have CGI shots, real shots with CGI After Effects of like a lot of the landmarks being destroyed, and yes, London Bridge does fall down, killing the Japanese Prime Minister. London Bridge fell, and the entire time, all I could think of was particular scene. Anyways, I did appreciate. Oh yeah, not everything was believable, but it was well shot. Which I was, that's a good thing. It was well shot. It was easy to follow the action and all the things that happened, and I was able to suspend my disbelief for most part about the effects, not really dwell on them. And then there's a scene in an elevator shaft where they blow a gas line and it blows up the entire building except for the tiny part that they're left in. Something that I did appreciate in this movie, in addition to the well-shot action scenes, excluding the instances of excessive violence, was that there was hardly any product placement in the movie, and the product placement that there wasn't particularly excessive. It was the at one point the president escapes his pursuers in a Land Rover, and terrorist tells his buddies that he's in a Land Rover, and it's a bulletproof Land Rover because Land Rovers are tough. Paid a lot of money to specifically mention it was a Land Rover. Additionally, like, any laptop that was ever used was a MacBook. Not that that's a big deal. That's normally how it is. The very first shot that you see the back of a laptop, though, the way that the light catches it, you actually cannot tell that it's an Apple. Can't even see the logo, just the way that the matte finishes and the way that they angle the lights. Totally fine with that. Then in the next shot, you can clearly see that it is, in fact, a MacBook. It's a little dark, so it's not, like, right in your face, but it's not the only time that they show a MacBook. The problem with this movie is that it's difficult to come out of and not be angry. You can either be angry because the conflict between these two factions, this arms dealer and the President of the United States, isn't appropriately fleshed out. It's only mentioned 2 or 3 times that he is an arms dealer and that he doesn't represent, that he's a bad man who but that he doesn't represent the majority of people. This guy basically, they say that he sells weapons to all of the bad guys. They don't say who, but they basically say the countries, which implies that it's all of the people who hate the West and America, and that no life over there is truly innocent. And that wasn't okay. That was not okay. Additionally, anybody who you see the face of who is a terrorist in this movie is Middle Eastern. They can be in London during, like, any of the fight scene, or when they do the couple of shots of the Middle East. All the bad guys are Middle Eastern, with one exception, and that is one of the operators at MI6, or it was either MI6 or Scotland Yard. I think it was MI6. And that one white guy, the reason that he turned on London, on the UK, on the world, is because they paid him 20 million euros, which basically says that white people are loyal to their country, but they're greedy capitalists and will only turn on their country if they're paid exorbitant sums of money. Oh, and he's British, so he's not American, so it doesn't really matter, because all of the Americans are trustworthy and absolutely capable of, are incapable of being traitors to their own country. This movie was violent, xenophobic, America is the good guys centric, and that the Middle East are the bad guys. They paint with these such broad strokes infinitely more complex issues that just the Middle East are the bad guys and we are the good guys, and this was very black and white. Um, there were some good action scenes, but I cannot, in good conscience, suggest going to see this movie. In fact, I regret going to see this movie. I wish that I had gone and seen something like Whiskey Tango Foxtrot or Zootopia or Race, even maybe. I don't know. Not a big fan of sports movies, but I probably would have enjoyed it more than this. Um, unless you are a fervent Donald Trump supporter, and in case you know who you are, and you may enjoy watching uh, Gerald Butler repeatedly stab terrorists to death with combat knives in various absolutely excruciatingly brutal scenes. Like one where he has already stabbed a guy and the guy is very slowly bleeding out and is coming at him with a combat knife and is trying to stab Banning, but he grabs the guy by the wrist and he very slowly pushes the guy's wrist holding the knife into the guy's neck. I cringed hard during that because it was brutal. And I don't like brutal violence. I like campy, fun violence that doesn't really feel real. Or, but this was brutal. And at the beginning, I could only think of the line from Fallout 4 War, war never changes. But Fallout 4 was fun. This movie was not fun. Not fun. Not really fun at all. Yeah. Don't go see it. Instead, you should see whatever my next movie is. I promise that it'll probably be Zootopia and will probably be a much better movie. Yeah. So this is SGSM. My first game review, though, will be coming out later this week. You should definitely stick around for it. Have a wonderful day.